And good afternoon. Welcome to Searching for the Truth on a beautiful, and I do mean a beautiful, Monday afternoon. Hope that you're having a wonderful day. And as always, if you have a Bible question or comment, we would love to hear from you. Our phone number is 1-855-568-1062. 1-855-568-1062. And trying to figure out if we are coming across on the air. I can't tell. I don't hear anything coming off the radio. And I know that we were not getting any back feed prior to time for us to go live today. So I don't know if there's a problem with the radio station or not. I have already sent a message to Russ there at the station. Hopefully he will see that and we can see if we got a problem or not. But anyway, those of you who are watching us on Facebook, you are with us. We're doing fine there. We're also doing fine on YouTube. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. And I have with me today Bruce Rees. Brother, how are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Glad to hear that.
All right. Thanks for having me.
We've had a good, well, thank you for being here. We've been working all day long, and I think we've had a pretty good day in preparing for Bible discussion. This is coming up in July. Actually, it'll be taking place in Amarillo, Texas, this July. What are the dates of that? Do you remember?
Oh, yes, I do. July 20th, 21st, 23rd, and 24th. And not only will we have it recorded in a video format, but also there'll be live streaming, actually. There for people to be able to watch it as it is unfolding.
So anyway, looking forward to that. And today, Bruce I was in a discussion here on the program, and also even had an extended broadcast last week on Facebook and YouTube with one of our listeners about the subject of inherited sin or sinful nature, being tainted or in bondage to sin, and had a lot of discussion about that, and also had some text messages back and forth with our listener after all of that, and oops, got the hiccups too. That's not good. But anyway,
I may have to be talking.
You may have to do a lot of talking. I had a sneezing fit earlier today, and then I got the hiccups. So, oh well. I was going to get your take on some of that as well, because one of the things that I pointed out is that Adam sinned. He didn't have a sinful nature, a sin nature. He sinned in a perfect environment. Why then is it so difficult for people to see that we too sin, not because we have a sinful nature, but because we are tempted in the same ways that Adam was tempted, except we just have a whole lot more temptation to deal with. We live in a wicked world. He didn't. Why is it so hard to recognize that we sin, not because we have a sin nature, but because we are tempted and we fall after the same likeness as Adam did?
I don't know. I mean, I know one of the main arguments about inherited total depravity is that there are so many people, everybody struggles with sin, and so there must be some inherited nature. But that's not, first of all, I don't think that's based on a balanced exegesis of Scripture. Number two, to your point, Adam lived in a sinless, perfect, whole world, and yet made the wrong decision, and Eve made the wrong decision. We have freedom of will, but look at the world around us.
Yeah.
And I think that's Paul's point in Romans 5 when he's saying we don't sin after the similitude of Adam. We don't live in the world Adam lived in. He opened the door. So
that is all very...
That may be what it is.
Very true.
So,
also, the question came up about being able to keep God's law. And, here's another comparison with Adam. Adam had one law, just one. All right, he didn't keep that one, but it wasn't because he had a sinful nature. He didn't keep that one law because he was tempted by Eve, his wife. He gave in to her. She was tempted through the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, just like we are. And she yielded. Now, We have, the Jews, for example, under the law of Moses, how many laws did the Jews have? You think, well, you had 10 commandments, right?
What do they say? 613 or something like that.
613. It's what
a lot of commandments. Yeah,
it's what they came up with. So you have a lot of commandments, and that's what Jewish scholars, by the way, have come up with. Is that accurate? I don't know if that's 100% accurate or not. I suspect we might be able to count them up and come up with something a little different. But
you go ahead and count them.
I thought I'd let you do that. I don't care how many there were, actually.
There were a lot.
There were a lot. Under the law of Moses, neither are you, neither is anyone else.
Yeah.
But there were a lot, okay? And that's true. But here's the question. Deuteronomy chapter 29. In fact, I think you turned over there, didn't you?
I did.
Deuteronomy chapter 29. The law of Moses was given to the people, for them to obey, for them to follow. And so, Bruce, I know you turned over there, so I know you got something to say about it.
Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 30 here. Let's pick up in verse 11. And this is about the law of Moses. Moses says, "For this commandment which I command you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it out of reach. It is not in heaven, that you should say, who will go up to heaven for us to get it for us and make us hear it, that we may observe it? Nor is it beyond the sea, that you should say, who will cross the sea for us to get it for us and make us hear it, that we may observe it? But the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may observe it." And then he says, "See, I have set before you today life and prosperity and death and adversity, in that I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that you may live and multiply, that the Lord your God may bless you in the land where you're entering to possess it." Now he goes on to say, if you turn your heart away, there'll be consequences for that. Mm-hmm. So now Paul does use this reference and incorporate Christ into it in the confession of faith of Jesus. And I think all of us should be able to say we can either confess Jesus or not confess Jesus. So that's how it applies in the new covenant. But the point is, he's talking about the law, and he does not indicate that the law is impossible for someone to obey. Of course, men fell short of that.
In fact, it's not too mysterious for you. What does that imply?
It's not beyond your ability to understand.
Okay. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will ascend into heaven for us to bring it to us?
It's not beyond your reach.
Okay. Nor is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us?
Same point.
Okay. For the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it.
And Don, to go with that, we get into this problem, especially those who subscribe to Calvinism, really any level of Calvinism. It's not just classic Calvinism, even more moderate and softer forms. But they end up arguing that God commands us to do that which we don't have the ability to do. And there are some grave consequences to that.
See, and I agree with you. Now, all right, listen, I understand. Man does not keep all of God's law perfectly. In fact, the law demonstrated that, and it was through the law that man came to understand his sin, see himself as a sinner, and as condemned by the law.
Right.
Romans chapter 7 emphasizes that point. And all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, Romans 3:23. But it's not because God gave us a law that we could not keep, like you said. Now, I asked our listener this question, and I really would. I'm interested in what you might say to answer this question, Bruce. James 1:13 says that God does not tempt anyone with evil. Ooh. Okay? God is not tempted by evil, nor does he tempt any man. Okay, how is that statement true, and how would that harmonize and fit with this concept of God giving human beings a law that they could not keep?
Oh, well, it would violate God's grace and goodness, and certainly that passage.
See, and I know people say, well, no, it really doesn't. It doesn't violate God's justice. I mean, God is still just for inflicting wrath on those who do not obey. Well, really? Because what is justice actually? What does that mean? That God is just.
He's righteous.
Okay. What does that mean that God is righteous?
I feel like this is that little, the little Bible class, grace is mercy and mercy is grace.
Actually, they're not. But
Yeah,
there's
but, you
kids,
know,
but they're not.
That's right.
Yeah.
But back to your point. So your point is that because of God's holiness and justice, fairness,
Okay.
faithfulness. Now, what man thinks is fair is not always what God considers to
Right.
be just. But He is faithful, and He
Right.
would not put us in a position where we could not do the right thing and then
1
condemn
Corinthians
us.
10:13.
Right.
But okay, let me put it this way so that people can understand clearly what I'm saying. All right. I again understand. Men do not keep God's law perfectly. I understand that. It's kind of like a basketball. Bruce, you played basketball.
I did.
What was your free throw percentage like?
What was my free? It was pretty
Yeah.
good. 80% probably. 75 maybe.
75, 80%. Those are roundabout numbers, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So you would make 75 out of 100.
Let's go with 80. That sounds better.
Okay, 80 out of 100.
Okay.
Could you make 100 out of 100?
I mean, theoretically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I could. I could, but I didn't.
You could, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Could you make 1,000 out of 1,000?
I mean, I guess if you can make 80%, then it's not that the free throw I missed was not that I was incapable of making that free throw.
Okay.
That's
what I'm getting at. Now,
asking, yeah.
the goal doesn't change. Okay, it's where it is. Now, if you miss, whose fault is it?
Mine.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is it your fault?
Because I could have made it.
Okay. How would that apply then to this issue?
Well, sure, it would not be my fault if it's beyond my ability to obey God.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how you could, and you know, when you get into real classic Calvinism, and this would be a good question for some who are kind of in between, did God ordain that all of this take place? And if God ordained that we should have a sinful nature as a result of Adam's transgression, and then commands us to do what we can't do, and when we fail to do it, condemns us to hell, how is He a just and righteous and fair God?
Well, if He condemns you for something that you could not help but do, I think that would certainly cast a bad reflection on God. So, okay, appreciate your thoughts. Just some extra thoughts from last week, and I want to throw those out and see what you had to say about that. By the way, I would like to invite everyone to check out our website, w65stchurchofchrist.com. Check that out because all of our latest lessons are available on our website, including the live streaming of our broadcast each weekday afternoon. Just would like to encourage you to check that out. And if you have any questions or comments this afternoon, please give us a call. Our phone number is 1-855-568-1062, 1-855-568-1062. As a matter of fact, guess what? We just got a call, and there we go. Thank you very much for giving us a call this afternoon. You have a question or comment?
Hey, Brother Don, how you doing?
Hello, my friend. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm blessed. Just got finished working a 12-hour shift, got 3 hours of sleep, headed back to work. You know how life is.
Oh man, that's rough.
Keeps you out of trouble.
I'm tremendously joyful. Today's a short day for me. I only worked 5 hours today, so it won't be too bad.
You're a better man than me.
I got a notification on my phone. I forgot that you host your show today due to the lack of sleep. But I was able to catch a little bit of what Mr. Bruce Reed said about something about God not being just if He commands us to do something, we cannot do it. I was talking to one of my other friends in the body of Christ. He holds, I think, pretty close, about 99.999% of what you hold to about human not being fallen or whatever. So I would like to present my perspective to Mr. Bruce Reeves, and then he can answer it because I'm driving to work. I would just say this, like I told my friend, we're born in the flesh. Okay, so flesh has certain desires. I understand that we have by our certain limited freedoms to be able to do certain things based off our fleshly nature, like eat or whatever it may be. But the distinction, like me and you talked about maybe last week, I can't remember when it was, about my understanding is that God's law reflects God's character, which is holy. So I may be flesh, y'all may be flesh, but we're not holy. So he asks a question. Let's say God decreed before the foundation of the world to say do this, and we aren't incapable of doing it, and that makes God, I guess, unjust. My position is no, because ultimately somebody's going to be sent to hell because of rejecting the cross, not because of someone trying to keep the commandments. I believe the commandments or the moral laws are means of God's grace to show us how holy God is, and we don't possess those type of attributes. So sure, like I said earlier last week when me and you talked, someone can be like a David because God knows their heart. They may fall short of the law because they're not holy, but God's not going to condemn them because he knows their hearts. So that's my position. So ultimately somebody's going to be in hell, not because they broke the law, but because they rejected the gospel, because Christ died for all people. You understand my perspective?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Oh, but that's, if you want to respond, if I said anything wrong, gentlemen, just please correct it. I'm open to listen, but like I said before, I'm on my way to work. Wish me luck. Love y'all, and have a blessed day.
Yeah. Thank you. You too.
You too. Be safe. Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye. All right, Bruce. It's up to you now.
Okay. Well, let me back this up and ask this question. We agree if you reject the cross, then that's what ultimately causes you to lose your soul. Really, it's your sin, though.
That's there you go.
Sin.
Here's a good illustration of that. Okay, you're out in the middle of the ocean. Your boat sinks. You're in the middle of the ocean. You don't have anything there to save you. Here comes a boat. Okay, mm-hmm. If that boat comes and you accept their lifeline, you will accept that salvation. What if you don't accept that? You don't drown because you reject the lifeline. You drown because you're in the ocean. Yeah. You're in the water, and you cannot. You can't get out of that.
I guess my question is: so all of these laws that we don't have the ability to obey, why is it we're able to obey that law or that truth or that command? So I'm asking: are there some commands we can't obey, and there's some that we can? Because and I'm pretty certain I know our last caller is not a classic Calvinist, but. Right. But like a full-blown Calvinist would say, hey, we can't obey any of them. And so there has to be some overwhelming operation on us to enable us to even believe or even to confess. So that's one question that I have. But I think the other problem has to do with the notion that we really can't help how we are responding. I need some proof of that from a biblical standpoint.
Okay. Well, we got to call her back, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say this to Mr. Reeves.
Okay.
We can, as Christians, to the best of our ability, love God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and spirit. Okay. But my emphasis, like with me and Brother Don, he was gracious enough to allow me and him to talk for over an hour on his show, was that we can't keep that perfectly, because of a weakness of our human flesh. So people can do certain things, like atheists can love his neighbor, things like that, but as far as like moral perfection, we can't do that. So that's my whole thing, like with Romans 7, when Paul encounters the law is holy, he realized he's transgressed. Even when somebody of the nation of Israel who's born under the Mosaic covenant by grace cannot keep the Mosaic covenant perfectly, but they can give the proper sacrifices that they are supposed to do.
Right. Mark,
and have faith in God.
Let me ask you about that passage in Deuteronomy 30, when he's talking about the law of Moses.
Can you talk a little louder?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you a little bit, but go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'll do my best. So in Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 11, when he says, "For this commandment which I command you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it out of reach,"
Sure.
which is talking about the law of Moses there.
Sure.
What do you think that means exactly?
I think it means the same way Paul addressed it when he said, "As to the law, blameless." So as a Jew who's zealous to keep God's commandments, he was able to do that, but not be able to do it perfectly, which just means that, hypothetically, I take it to mean that if us three was born Jews on the Mosaic covenant, we sin and we give the proper sacrifices, but we can still do what God tells us to do in the law. When I don't know if y'all disagreeing with me, I'm saying no one can keep it perfectly without sinning.
See
that's what I'm saying.
And that was my point. I mean, just like a free throw shooter, he can make every single free throw, but he doesn't. And that's been my emphasis. It's not that he can't do it; it's that he doesn't do it. And there is a difference.
I would say to the analysis of the free throw shooter, that takes skills, first of all. So that's in the realm of human limitations to be able to do that. But when it comes to something that's holy, that's not in the realm of human limitations, we can't do that. What we can do is that do the proper sacrifices, humble ourselves before God, and trust in His will.
But let me say this, and I understand what you're saying. It's just that in Deuteronomy 30 and verse 11, he says, "For this commandment which I command you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it out of reach." So it sounds like he's saying it's not that the commandments I'm giving you are beyond your ability to reach. Now, we all fall short, and that goes back to what Don is saying. But go ahead.
But I feel my position carries more weight by you saying that everyone falls short, because if everybody had the capacity to do it, someone besides Christ would be able to do it.
Why?
So
why would that follow?
Because of the weakness of the flesh. Now that gets into the hypostatic union of Christ, one nature, being 100% God and 100% man.
Yeah.
And we're not being that.
But like I said, he condemned sin in the flesh. He did not condemn sin as God.
Are you saying that the reason that he resisted temptation to sin? I agree, he's divine and human, but I believe Jesus faced temptation, was tempted in all points like as we are, yet without sin. So are we saying here that you think that somehow he didn't have the ability to do that?
No, I'm saying I can barely hear everything you said.
Okay.
But I barely heard you. I want to respond to whatever you said, but I really can't hear what you're saying. I apologize. It might be my phone or my connection.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
But my question would be to y'all: two gentlemen born of the Holy Spirit in the Gospel of John, chapter 1. John says Jesus is greater than him. My question would be to y'all: why? He gives the answer above. I think it's like in verse 14 or whatever. So my point would be, only the Son of God was able to keep the Mosaic law perfectly to redeem his people born under the law. That's what Galatians says. So that would be my perspective. Again, we can agree to disagree, or y'all can show me where I'm wrong by God's grace. But I just wanted to call to say moral perfection. No one can keep it 100% perfect. No one can walk in the ways of God, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and spirit, as Christ did constantly all the days of his life.
Yeah, well, we're out of time, Martin. Appreciate you call today. And I hear the...
I'm sorry. God bless. I love you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bruce?
Are we out of time?
We're out of time, but I would like to give you a moment to respond. I don't think that... I hear the outro going on the radio. It is not coming through on our headphones because we're connected to the radio station, but we're not actually going out on the air.
Oh, okay.
So go ahead. You've got
a little bit of time here.
You do.
So I would say, first of all, that back to Deuteronomy 30, this says these commandments are not too great for you to keep, number one. Number two, if God commands you to do a thing and you don't have the ability to do it and then condemns you for not doing it, then that's
God's fault.
That's God's
fault. It's not your fault. It's God's fault.
I can't do anymore. And thirdly, I want to say regarding the hypostatic union of Christ and the incarnation, while it's true he was both divine and human, the scriptures emphasize that he faced temptation as a man, and that's why he condemned sin in the flesh. He showed us the very thing we're talking about, and that is that we all sin, but we don't have to, and he didn't. And so if we're going to argue that he used something to overcome temptation that we don't have access to, then I think we lose the sense of the power of his example for us.
Yeah. And those are good points. And what does the Bible actually teach? That's what we ought to all be concerned about,
yes.
right? What does the Bible actually teach? Someone texted that, I'm not so concerned about the old law, but the gospel of Christ. Can I obey Jesus? And I do believe, by the way, that I can love God with all my heart, all my soul, all my mind, with all my strength. Can I truly put God first in my life? That's the question. Mm-hmm. Yes, I can. Do I do that all the time? No, I don't. Look, I understand that. But again, I can't. And it's my fault that I don't. To this argument of being holy, God is holy, his law is holy, I'm not holy. 1 Peter 1:13 tells us that we're to be sober. We are to look to ourselves, and we are to govern our lives in such a way that we, as Peter commands us, be holy just as he is holy.
And Christ makes us holy.
Christ makes us holy. That's true. Now, I think this really gets to the heart of it. God made Adam and Eve in his image. Mm-hmm. Human beings are still in his image today. All right? Number 2, God gave them a law. Was that law too holy for Adam to keep? Was that why he didn't obey it? Number 3, now he gave the Jews the law. That law was indeed holy. Did they keep it because they couldn't, or because they didn't? Deuteronomy 30, I think, makes it clear. They did not keep it because they simply didn't. Isaiah 59, verses 1 and 2. Why were people separated from God? Because of their sin. Your sin and your iniquities have separated between you and your God. That's why men are separated. They are cut off from God. And that's why we're lost, because of our sin. That was a point earlier. And also, God did not give men a law that was beyond them. Deuteronomy 30 makes that very clear. The law that God gave men to do was in harmony with what man could do, and that in Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13, hear, O Israel, the idea is, the conclusion of the whole matter is what?
To fear God and keep his commandments. And let me say one thing I know you've talked about Romans 7 plenty of times here, but right. Again, this misunderstanding that people have, that the point in Romans chapter 7 is that Paul was saying he could not have kept the commandments of the law of Moses. That's not Paul's point. Paul's point is that because he hadn't, there was no recourse for him in the law.
To overcome that, to get out of that.
To get out of the guilt. Only Jesus.
He could not escape.
Only through Christ and his forgiveness. So that's right.
So, all right. Thank you for being with us today. And, appreciate it very much. We were not on the radio, I don't believe, today. So hopefully I can get that corrected tomorrow. But appreciate everyone being with us on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you, Bruce, for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
And Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. Hope that you can join us then. And until then, may God bless you. Have a great rest of the day.